56. Satana's nature and name. 27th March, 1847. You will have already heard and read often, and still hear and read it, how this same evil spirit occurs under all kinds of names. And next to him still a lot of companions of the same light, which are called devils. I will take this opportunity to give a precise definition of where the evil spirit got all the different names from, and why, and who actually are the devils. Satana, Satan, Leviathan, Beelzebub, Gog, Magog, the serpent, the dragon, the beast of the abyss, Lucifer, and the like are some more names that are used to describe him in different ways. Lucifer, or light-bearer, was his original characteristic name. Satana was as much as the antipole against the Godhead. As Satana, this spirit was really placed by God opposite the Godhead, as the woman is placed opposite the man. The Godhead would have begotten his eternal ideas without number into his being, so that they would have matured in his concentrated light, and thereby a creation of beings would have emerged from the light of this spirit in highest clarity, and the whole infinity would have been populated more and more from this very light. For in infinite space there would also be room for the infinite, and eternities would never be able to fill this space in such a way that beings could ever become crowded in it. But as you know, since this spirit had such an endlessly great destiny to be a second God beside me, he also had to pass a test of freedom corresponding to his destiny, which he also, as you know, did not pass, because he wanted to raise himself above the deity and make him submissive. The first thing that this same spirit did against the deity was a dispute over rank. But since he could not persuade the deity to give him precedence and to make himself completely submissive to him, he burned in his anger and wanted to formally destroy the deity, for which he really would not have lacked the strength, if the deity, according to his eternal wisdom, had not caught this mutineer hard in all his parts in time. Of course, it sounds a bit puzzling that such a power should have existed in this spirit in order to defy the eternal Godhead to such an extent that it would finally have to give in to its power and would finally have to let itself be completely captured, and thereby become incapable for all eternities, which would be as good as being destroyed. But the thing becomes comprehensible if one considers that the Godhead has put into this very spirit, so to speak, a perfect second eye, which, if already created in a certain way, according to the time, nevertheless was placed opposite the Godhead in all spaces of infinity equally powerfully. This Spirit in which the Godhead itself had concentrated His light was spread out through the whole infinity like the Godhead. Therefore, it would also have been possible for Him, vice versa, to seize the Godhead everywhere and to make Him incapable. Only in this thought of selfishness, the great vanity and the self-pleasure in His light and in His endless sublimity and power awoke in Him. In this selfishness and in this pleasure in Himself, He forgot the old eternal Godhead, burned in His vanity, and solidified Himself. Then the Godhead seized His being in all parts, took away from it all specific essence, formed from it world bodies throughout the whole infinity, and wrapped the spirit of this endless being soul with the most powerful bonds, and bound it into the depth of matter. In this position, this spirit is no longer called Satana, but because it has emancipated itself from the eternal divine order, Satan, that is as much as same pole with the divinity. But you know that equal polarities never attract, but always only repel each other. Therein lies the reason that this being is in everything the most distant from the Godhead, and therefore the most opposite. Therein and thereby also its arch-evil. Now you know why this spirit is also called Satan. By the term Leviathan, one wanted to designate only his strength and power, and that after the concept of a former sea monster, which was certainly the largest, strongest, and most indestructible animal of the whole earth. Its size was like that of a country, its shape like that of a giant dragon, which possessed such strength that it could suffer a strong fire in its entrails without suffering any disadvantage. If this fire not infrequently penetrated through its throat and through its nostrils in the most ghastly spraying of flames. For this very reason, our evil spirit was not seldom called the fiery dragon, also the dragon of the abyss. This spirit, which was thus freed, that is, as much as the spirit is freed from all its soul, and only in its spiritually purer being, admittedly very bound, made an appearance at various times, if it would be allowed to improve itself, which it could have done, since it was freed, as far as it was possible, from all its evil soul characteristics. So this disenchanted spirit demanded that he be allowed to be divinely worshipped for a while. And when he will realize that his worship is no longer pleasing to him, he will completely turn around and become a most pure spirit. He was allowed to do so. The entire nature of paganism, which is almost as old as the human race, bears witness to this. Therefore, the Lord originally chose only one small nation on earth. Everything else, however, without prejudice to freedom, could follow the desire of this spirit, like the animals, with impunity. From this relationship, then, the most diverse names of this being worshipped as God have arisen. But since this being was not content with this, but instead of the promised improvement, only made ever greater interventions in the divine order, it was driven into very strict imprisonment. But since it had already in such time formed a multitude of like-minded spirits from the human race, it then worked through these its angels. For a diabolo or devil is nothing else than a spirit who was raised and trained in the school of Satan. This must not be understood as if such spirits had really been formed in a school of Satan, but they formed themselves according to those specifica which they took into themselves from the ties of this spirit. These spirits, because they also have basic evil in them, are called devils, as much as disciples of Satan. But they are nevertheless vastly different from him. For with them only the spiritual is homogeneous with the evil spirit. But their spirit, though in hard captivity, is nevertheless pure, while the spirit of Satan is the actual evil. Therefore it will and can happen that all devils will still be saved before Satan is compelled in himself to undertake the great journey to his own downfall. Now you know which nature is actually Satan and devil. Next, therefore, for a stronger illumination in this matter, several remarkable things